I made this just to test it, and somehow the entire pie is gone. It all starts with my flaky 5-star keto pie crust that you press into the pan, bake until golden, and then you fill it with a velvety homemade sugar-free eggnog cream filling that is just top tier. You start with my flaky pie crust, the one that you guys already know and love. Throw in 1 cup of almond flour, 3 tablespoons of coconut flour, and don't worry, it's not going to taste like coconut flour if you don't like the taste of coconut flour. We're going to add something in that's going to fix that. 1 teaspoon of xanthan gum and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Toss this all into a food processor and pulse it up until it's combined. Then we're gonna add in 1/2 cup of unsalted butter. I cube this up first and then I pop it into the freezer for around 30 minutes or so. You want it to be cold and firm butter because the key to flaky pie crust is having very cold butter. Then add in 1 ounce of softened cream cheese. This is what's gonna help cut down that coconut flavor. And then pulse those together until coarse crumbles form. Next, add in 1 egg and 1.5 teaspoons of vinegar. You could use white vinegar or apple cider vinegar. I know this sounds like an odd ingredient, but it does serve a purpose in traditional pie crust as well. The vinegar helps to make our crust tender, flaky, and it helps to brown a little bit too. Pulse again until you get a dough ball that's rolling around into the food processor. You don't want to over process it because remember, we want to keep chunks of butter in our dough. We don't want to pulse that butter into it or else you're not going to get as flaky as a pie crust as you want. Put the dough in between 2 sheets of parchment paper and then flatten it into a disc, and then we're going to refrigerate this for 30 minutes. And throughout this whole process, and even in the recipe on my website, I mentioned that it's important to chill your dough periodically, especially if you have a warm kitchen and you feel like the dough is starting to get a little bit too tacky. This again keeps that butter solid. After those 30 minutes, we're gonna roll the dough. You wanna place down a damp paper towel first. This is just gonna keep our parchment paper from sliding around your kitchen counter. And then keeping that dough sandwiched between the parchment paper, we're gonna use a rolling pin to roll out the dough into a circular pie crust that's around 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thick. You wanna make it wide enough so that it's gonna cover a 8 to 9 inch pie plate. And keep that dough sandwiched between the parchment paper as you roll it out. Start to work from the center of the disc and then work your way out in all directions. And if the parchment paper starts to crumble or wrinkle beneath the dough, I just like to flip it over, carefully release that top parchment paper, place it back down, and now roll on this side. And sometimes I'll just keep flipping back and forth and doing that. If at any point your dough starts to stick to that parchment paper where it doesn't release easily, just pop it back in the fridge. You just want to chill it for now around like 10 to 15 minutes. That just sets that butter again and it should easily peel off. Next, gently press that pie dough into the plate and then flute the edges of the crust. Then you want to prick the crust with a fork all over just so that it doesn't puff up when baking, because we are going to blind bake this, which means we're baking it in the oven without any filling in it. Another step you can do to make sure that the bottom isn't going to rise up when it's baking is to lay down a sheet of parchment paper and then add some pie weights on top. This will bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit in the oven for around 12 to 15 minutes or until the edges are golden brown. And if you are using pie weights, just remove the pie weights in the parchment paper around 3 to 5 minutes before it's done baking. Quick pause on the pie for a real life moment to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is ISSA, because this part is actually really close to my heart. If you didn't know, I'm actually a licensed pharmacist in addition to running this channel and putting out my new cookbook, Protein Packed. I was recently interviewed on a podcast where I was asked if doctors and pharmacists should get more nutrition education rather than just 1 or 2 semesters in pharmacy and medical school. My answer was a hard yes, because I truly believe that food and exercise should be the first line therapy for most treatments. But so much has changed in the field of nutrition over the past few decades that it got me thinking, even though I try to stay up in my own research on what's new coming out, there's always more that I could learn. That's a big reason why I decided to get my ISSA nutrition certification, to stay current and actually deepen my understanding in a way that applies to real people rather than just textbooks. ISSA, short for International Sports Science Association, is today's sponsor and honestly a really amazing option if you're passionate about nutrition and health, but you're feeling stuck, burnt out, and you're just ready for a career change. Their programs are 100% online and self-paced, so you can study on your own schedule from your phone, tablet, or computer. The final exam is open note, open book, and taken right from your home. And the pass rate is very high. Plus, you become part of a massive community of over 500,000 fitness and nutrition professionals who generally want to help people with their health goals. If you are passionate about health and wellness and want to gain skills so that you can help others, this might be your sign to explore a career change. You can go to joinissa.com/KetoFocus. It's also linked down in the description box, and use my code KetoFocus to get $100 off of your Nutritionist Certification. Now for the star of the show, the eggnog filling. Start by warming a half a cup of your favorite nut or seed milk, just until it's warm and not boiling, because we're gonna temper an egg yolk. And we don't wanna have scrambled eggs in our pie. While that's heating, whisk your egg yolk with 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar-free sweetener until it turns thick and pale yellow. This step is important because it actually dissolves that sweetener and gives our eggnog that rich custardy base. Slowly whisk a little bit of warmed milk, about 1/4 cup, into the yolk to bring the temperature up gently. Then pour that whole mixture back into the saucepan with the rest of the warmed milk. Keep the heat low and stir it constantly until it thickens enough to coat the back of a spoon and hits a temperature of around 165 degrees Fahrenheit. That's how you know it's safe and it's properly set. Once that's thickened, pull it off the heat and stir in the rest of the milk, which should be around 1/2 cup, and 1 tablespoon of heavy cream. And you just made yourself some sugar-free eggnog. Now we do want to pop this in the fridge so that it cools completely. This cooling step is key because we are going to add some pudding mix later, and we want to make sure everything sets correctly. After it's chilled, whisk the eggnog with 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg and 1 box of your favorite sugar-free vanilla pudding mix. Mix it until it starts to thicken. And the pudding mix that I used is by Simply Desserts. It's sugar-free. I like it because it has better ingredients in there, and it's sweetened with stevia and erythritol. If you can't find it locally or online, you can just go ahead and use a sugar-free Jell-O brand. It works too. In a separate bowl, beat 4 ounces of softened cream cheese with 1/3 cup of powdered sugar-free sweetener and 2 tablespoons of bourbon or spiced rum, and mix that until it's completely smooth. If you don't want to use alcohol in this recipe, you can skip it. It's not going to affect the texture at all. It does add a little bit of flavor though. That's why I like to add it in. This cream cheese mixture is what gives our pie that rich cheesecake-like texture and filling. So you want 0 lumps here if you can. That's why I mix it with an electric mixer on medium speed. Then pour in 2 cups of cold, heavy cream and beat that on medium-high until stiff peaks form. This is what makes the filling light and fluffy instead of dense. Take about 1 cup of that whipped cream and gently fold it into the eggnog pudding to loosen it up at first, and then fold in another cup. This keeps everything light and airy and prevents the filling from deflating. Spoon that into your cooled crust, smooth the top, and we'll let it go in the fridge overnight to finish setting. The remaining whipped cream, you can wrap that with plastic wrap and store it in the fridge as well. When you're ready to serve and enjoy your pie, simply take the pie and the whipped cream out of the fridge. If your whipped cream looks like it's gotten a little bit liquidy overnight, just go ahead and use an electric mixer to whip that back up until it's light and fluffy, and then spoon that over the top of your eggnog pie. And I like to finish this with a dusting of nutmeg to make it look pretty. This pie is rich, creamy, perfectly spiced, and tastes like real holiday eggnog. If you want to try more keto cream pie recipes like my velvety chocolate cream pie or my perfect peanut butter cream pie recipe, click right here because I got you covered. Thanks again to ISSA for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to go to joinissa.com/KetoFocus to sign up for your certification today.